Councilman Richard Morrison had represented District 7 for 12 years, and during that time he had perfected the art of speaking in public meetings while his hands worked behind closed doors. Every constituent who walked into his office heard the same promises. He was fighting for them, protecting their interests, making their neighborhood better. But what those constituents did not know was that every vote Richard Morrison cast, every contract he approved, every development project he championed had a price tag attached to it, and that price was always paid directly into his pocket. But here is what Councilman Morrison forgot. Public service is called public for a reason. Every contract has a paper trail. Every payment leaves a digital footprint. And when Judge Caprio's courtroom doors opened to reveal the councilman himself standing as a defendant, the entire city realized that the man they had elected to serve them had been serving himself all along. What you are about to witness is not just a trial, it is the complete exposure of a man who turned public trust into private profit. The moment when Councilman Morrison realizes that his carefully constructed lies are collapsing around him will be absolutely devastating. So if you have watched this far, do not miss the end. Like the video and dive into the story, because this confrontation between corrupt power and unwavering justice will leave you speechless. It is Tuesday morning, 9:30 a.m. sharp, at the Providence Municipal Court. The courtroom is filled to capacity with reporters, citizens, and former constituents who had believed in Richard Morrison's promises. And there, at the defendant's table, sits Councilman Morrison in an expensive, tailored suit, his campaign smile still fixed on his face, as if he is attending a ribbon-cutting ceremony rather than facing criminal charges. The bailiff's voice cuts through the murmur of the crowd. The state of Rhode Island versus City Councilman Richard Morrison. Judge Caprio looks down from his bench with an expression that suggests he has already reviewed every document in the case. Councilman Morrison, you stand accused of bribery, fraud, embezzlement of public funds, and abuse of public office. These are serious charges that strike at the heart of public trust. How do you respond? Morrison stands with practiced ease, buttoning his jacket with the confidence of a man who has talked his way out of difficult situations his entire career. Your Honor, I appreciate the opportunity to address these unfortunate misunderstandings. I believe that when we examine the full context of my public service, it will become clear that these charges are based on misinterpretations of standard political practices. Judge Caprio's eyebrow raises slightly. Misinterpretations of standard political practices? Councilman Morrison, would you care to elaborate on what you consider standard? Morrison's smile widens, his voice taking on the smooth tone he uses at campaign rallies. Your Honor, I have served the people of District 7 for 12 years. During my tenure, I have brought millions of dollars in development to our community. I have created jobs, improved infrastructure, and revitalized neighborhoods that were struggling. What the prosecution is characterizing as personal gain was actually strategic relationship building that benefited my constituents. Judge Caprio's expression remains neutral. Strategic relationship building. The indictment alleges that you accepted over $800,000 in bribes from contractors in exchange for awarding them no-bid city contracts. That seems fairly straightforward. Morrison waves his hand dismissively. Your Honor, in politics, relationships matter. When developers want to invest in a community, they meet with the councilman representing that district. Sometimes those meetings include gifts, donations, or consulting fees. That is how government works at every level. Consulting fees? Judge Caprio leans forward. According to the evidence, you created a shell consulting company that received payments from contractors immediately after you voted to approve their projects. That is not relationship building, that is corruption. For the first time, irritation flickers across Morrison's face. Your Honor, I had expertise that these developers needed. My consulting company provided legitimate services that happened to coincide with projects I supported as a councilman. The timing was coincidental. Judge Caprio picks up a thick folder. Councilman Morrison, let me ask you directly. According to bank records, your consulting company received a payment of $95,000 from Riverside Construction 2 days after you cast the deciding vote to award them a $12 million contract to renovate the District 7 Community Center. Is that accurate? Morrison's jaw tightened slightly. Your Honor, Riverside Construction hired me to provide community insight for that project. They wanted to ensure that the renovation would meet the actual needs of District 7 residents. Community insight? Judge Caprio's tone sharpens. The contract for that insight was signed the day before the council vote. The payment was made 2 days after the vote passed, and according to emails we have obtained, you never provided any consulting services whatsoever. The only communication between you and Riverside Construction was your vote approving their contract. Morrison shifts his weight. Your Honor, the consulting relationship was informal. Not every service requires a formal deliverable. My value to Riverside was my understanding of the community and my ability to advocate for projects that would benefit residents. Advocate for projects? Judge Caprio opens another document. The community center renovation went 60% over budget, was completed 18 months late, and multiple residents filed complaints about substandard work. Where exactly was your advocacy? Morrison's confidence begins to waver. Construction projects face unexpected challenges. I cannot be held responsible for every delay or cost overrun. But you can be held responsible for accepting nearly $100,000 from a contractor who then delivered shoddy work while you said nothing. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe public officials should work for the people, not for the highest bidder. Judge Caprio takes a deep breath. Councilman Morrison, let us review the pattern of behavior documented in the prosecution's evidence. Over a period of 8 years, your consulting company received payments totaling over $800,000 from 6 different contractors. In every single case, those payments occurred within days or weeks of you voting to approve their contracts. Do you still maintain that this is coincidental? Morrison straightens his posture, his voice taking on a defensive edge. Your Honor, I voted for dozens of contracts during my time on the council. The fact that some of the companies I work with also received city contracts does not prove corruption. It proves that I had good judgment about which companies could deliver quality work. Good judgment? Judge Caprio's tone grows colder. Let us examine your good judgment. Harborview Development paid your consulting company $120,000. 3 weeks later, you voted to approve their contract to build affordable housing in District 7. 2 years later, that housing project was condemned due to structural defects. Families with children were living in apartments with mold, faulty wiring, and failing foundations. Where was your good judgment then? Morrison's face reddens. Your Honor, I cannot inspect every beam and wire in a construction project. If Harborview cut corners, that is on them, not on me. Except that city inspectors flagged safety concerns during construction, and you personally intervened to prevent work stoppages. We have emails where you told the building inspector to give Harborview more time to address violations because halting construction would hurt the community. Do you remember those emails? The color drains from Morrison's face. Your Honor, I was trying to keep the project moving forward. Stopping construction would have left families without housing even longer. Or perhaps you were protecting a company that had just paid you $120,000. Judge Caprio picks up another document. Let us look at another example. Summit Waste Management paid your consulting company $75,000. 2 weeks later, you voted to award them the exclusive garbage collection contract for District 7. Within 6 months, residents were filing hundreds of complaints about missed pickups, overflowing dumpsters, and unsanitary conditions. True? Morrison's hands clench. Summit was transitioning to a new service model. Growing pains are normal in any transition. Growing pains that lasted 2 years? Councilman Morrison, the city received over 2,000 complaints about Summit's service. Other council members tried to terminate their contract, but you blocked every attempt. You protected a company that was failing to serve your constituents while they continued paying your consulting company quarterly fees. How do you explain that? Morrison's voice rises. I believed Summit could improve. I was giving them the chance to fix their problems rather than immediately firing them. Or you were protecting your income stream while your constituents lived with garbage piling up in their neighborhoods. Judge Caprio leans back. Councilman Morrison, the pattern is clear. You accepted payments from companies, voted to give them contracts, and then protected those companies even when they failed to deliver acceptable work. At every step, you prioritized your personal financial gain over the welfare of the people you were elected to serve. Morrison's composure finally cracks. Your Honor, you are painting a picture that ignores all the good I did for District 7. I brought investment to a community that was ignored for decades. I created jobs. I improved schools. You cannot reduce 12 years of public service to a handful of questionable business relationships. Questionable? Judge Caprio's voice cuts through Morrison's protest. Let us be precise about what we are discussing. You systematically sold your votes to the highest bidder. You created a fake consulting company to launder bribes. You protected corrupt contractors while your constituents suffered. That is not questionable, that is criminal. Criminal? Morrison's voice breaks slightly. Your Honor, I made mistakes in judgment, I admit that. But I never set out to hurt anyone. I genuinely believed that the companies I worked with would deliver quality work. If they failed, that is their failure, not mine. Judge Caprio picks up a bound transcript. Councilman Morrison, let us listen to a phone call between you and Marcus Chen, the CEO of Summit Waste Management. This call was recorded 6 months after residents began complaining about Summit's service. The courtroom falls silent as the audio recording begins. Morrison's recorded voice is casual and confident. Marcus, we need to talk about the complaints piling up at City Hall. Chen's voice is equally relaxed. Rich, I know the transition has been rough, but we are getting there. Give us another quarter to get our systems in place. Another quarter? Marcus, I have council members breathing down my neck. They want to terminate your contract and bring in someone else. That cannot happen, Rich. We have too much invested in this infrastructure. Besides, you know we have been good to you, very good. Morrison's laugh is knowing. I am aware, and I appreciate the generosity, but I need you to understand that I can only protect you if you show some improvement. What do you need? I need you to assign extra crews to the areas where complaints are concentrated. Make it visible that you are trying. Give me something I can point to when I defend keeping your contract. Done. And Rich, your quarterly payment is coming next week. Consider it a bonus for your continued support. I appreciate that, Marcus. Just remember, our relationship is mutually beneficial. You take care of my consulting company. I take care of you at the council meetings. Always. We are partners in this. The recording ends. The courtroom sits in stunned silence. Judge Caprio's voice is quiet but firm. Councilman Morrison, you just heard yourself explicitly discuss accepting payments in exchange for protecting a failing contractor. How do you explain this? Morrison's face has gone pale. Your Honor, that conversation was about legitimate consulting fees for legitimate services. Legitimate services? Judge Caprio's tone sharpens. You literally discussed protecting a company that was failing to serve residents in exchange for payments. That is not consulting. That is bribery. Morrison's desperation becomes visible. Your Honor, that recording is taken out of context. Marcus and I had a professional relationship that included multiple components. Yes, his company paid my consulting firm, but I also provided valuable advice and advocacy. Valuable advice? Judge Caprio opens yet another folder. Councilman Morrison, after that phone call, did Summit Waste Management improve their service? Morrison hesitates. They made efforts. They made efforts? The complaint numbers actually increased over the following 6 months, but your consulting company continued receiving quarterly payments of $25,000 each. How exactly were you earning those fees? Morrison's voice drops. I was maintaining the relationship and providing ongoing consultation. Councilman Morrison, we have reviewed every email, every document, every communication between you and Summit Waste Management. In 18 months, you provided exactly 0 written reports, 0 formal recommendations, and 0 documented consulting work. The only thing you provided was your vote to keep their contract active. That is not consulting, that is corruption. Morrison's shoulders slump. Your Honor, I know how this looks, but you have to understand the pressure of being in elected office. Campaigns are expensive. Maintaining relationships with donors and supporters requires resources. I never set out to be corrupt. It just happened gradually. Judge Caprio's response is devastating. It just happened gradually. Councilman Morrison, corruption does not just happen, it is a choice. Every time you accepted a payment from a contractor, you chose money over integrity. Every time you voted for a contract from someone who was paying you, you chose personal gain over public service. Every time you protected a failing company because they were paying your consulting fees, you chose to betray the people who elected you. Morrison's voice cracks. Your Honor, please, I can make this right. I will resign from the council. I will pay back every dollar I received. I will cooperate with any investigation. Just give me the chance to correct my mistakes. Correct your mistakes? Judge Caprio leans forward. Councilman Morrison, families lived in condemned housing because you protected a corrupt developer. Neighborhoods dealt with overflowing garbage for years because you shielded a failing waste company. Your constituents trusted you to fight for them, and you sold them out for $800,000. Those mistakes cannot be corrected by simply writing a check. Judge Caprio takes a deep breath. Richard Morrison, you came into this courtroom still wearing the mask of a public servant, still speaking in the language of someone who cares about his community. But every document, every recording, every bank statement tells the truth. You never served the public. You served yourself. Morrison's face goes pale. Your Honor, please do not do this. For accepting bribes totaling over $800,000, I am imposing a sentence of 5 years in federal prison. For fraud in creating a shell company to launder those bribes, an additional 2 years. For abuse of public office in systematically betraying your constituents, an additional 18 months. Your sentences will run consecutively for a total of 8.5 years in federal custody. The courtroom erupts in whispers and gasps. Morrison staggers backward. 8.5 years? Your Honor, I have a family. I have responsibilities. You had responsibilities to your constituents, Councilman Morrison. You abandoned those responsibilities every time you accepted a bribe. Additionally, you are hereby removed from your position on the City Council, effective immediately. All assets purchased with funds from your consulting company are subject to seizure and forfeiture. You are permanently barred from holding any elected office or public position, and you will serve your sentence in federal prison where you will have time to reflect on the true meaning of public service. Morrison's legs buckle. Your Honor, I am begging you. I made mistakes, I know that. But 8.5 years will destroy my life. My children will grow up with their father in prison. Please, I am not a violent criminal. I am just a politician who made bad choices. Judge Caprio's response is measured but firm. Councilman Morrison, you are not just a politician who made bad choices. You are a thief who stole from the public trust. You took an oath to serve your community, and you broke that oath every single day for 8 years. Your children will grow up knowing that their father betrayed thousands of people who believed in him. Perhaps that lesson will teach them something about integrity that you never learned. The bailiffs move forward for the first time in 12 years. Richard Morrison is no longer a councilman. He is just another convicted criminal facing the consequences of his greed. As the handcuffs click around his wrists, the expensive suit that once signified success now looks like a costume worn by a con artist. Judge Caprio delivers his final words. Councilman Morrison, you built your career on the promise of serving the people, but you served only yourself. You accepted bribes, protected corrupt contractors, and betrayed your constituents at every turn. Today, you learned what every citizen already knows. Public office is a sacred trust, not a business opportunity. When you violate that trust, justice will find you. Within hours, news of Morrison's conviction spreads throughout Providence. Former constituents feel vindicated. Citizens who lost faith in their elected officials begin to hope that accountability still exists. The District 7 Community Center that Morrison helped approve is finally being properly renovated with a new contractor who actually cares about quality. The families who lived in condemned housing are being relocated to safe apartments. The garbage service has been replaced with a company that actually picks up trash on schedule. Sometimes the most important lesson about public service comes from watching someone who forgot what service actually means face the consequences of their betrayal. Richard Morrison walked into that courtroom still believing that his silver tongue and expensive suit would save him. He walked out in handcuffs, headed to federal prison for 8.5 years, where he will have plenty of time to reflect on the difference between serving the public and robbing them. If you enjoyed this story and believe that public officials should be held accountable for betraying the trust of their constituents, please like and subscribe to this channel. Check out the other stories where we examine what happens when justice finally catches up with those who turned public service into private profit. See you in the next video. Stay healthy.